that looked to me and said, we're going to stick around because we think you can do this. We believe you can do this. And truly, if that 70 or 80 people shrank down to just one person, that's really all a person needs, is that one person to push Nancy, a few feet forward, to push her to believe in herself or take the risk or do the deal, whatever the quest is.
Yes.
Just takes one. It truly just takes one.
Hey guys, it's Nancy, and welcome to the She Laughs podcast. Sit down with me while I chat and get personal with some insanely cool women as they share their smarts and their hearts. God gave us each unique gifts, and we got to use them. Inside each one of us is a cool girl. So buckle up. Let's get vulnerable. Let's get real, and let's laugh. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the She Laughs podcast. And today we have one of my favorite human beings. Tori Clark is in the house, and I'm so excited for y'all to get to know her today. She's an incredible entrepreneur who has, accomplished so much in her young time on earth. And currently she's the owner of Spa Luxe. So I'm excited for you to hear about that. But before we dive into Tori and all of her amazing accomplishments, I want to introduce her. Tori, thank you for being here today.
Nancy, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so excited for everybody to hear about you and your walk and all you've accomplished. But before we get to everything that you built, I'd love to know, and for our audience to know, who was Tori before the titles? Like, what shaped you early in the ways people may not expect?
Oh, Nancy, are the police listening to this? Do we really want to go there? I'm just kidding.
I'm sure there's a statute of limitations in your own.
I'm totally kidding. There are a couple of, cornerstone moments of my life that definitely shaped me. And I think they were definitely a product of two things. Number one, our genetics, right? And number two, what's around us, our upbringing, our environment. And when I was a child, my mom left when I was 2. So my dad raised me. So it's just my dad and this 2-year-old little girl. And I will tell you how that relationship started out. My dad, after, going through the divorce, he was in his bedroom and if I remember right, our rooms shared a wall. So he was in his room. It was late at night. He was crying. I'm just going through, the emotional turmoil that a divorce can bring. And me being a little whippersnapper of a 2-year-old, I walked into my dad's room early, like late at night, early in the morning. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, you've got to stop this crying. I can't get a wink of sleep. So I called him out right away. And you know what? That was the start of my life. I've called him out the rest of my life. Being raised by, a female being raised by a male is a very unique upbringing and such a unique perspective. And I think that all of the major points of my life involved my dad in some kind of way, and some not so great and some amazing. But I think that some of the success that I've had in life comes from one outstanding moment, which was our house was foreclosed on. And the day of the foreclosure, my dad, in his typical male fashion, waited till the very last day. And this was in the 90s. So, Nancy, I don't know if you know this or if you can remember this, but during that time, they either auctioned your house off like on the courthouse steps or in your front yard. So ours was the latter. The auctioneer was in the front yard.
Oh.
And we were carrying boxes out to this trailer to load up to move out of the house. I remember carrying a box of my belongings and I looked over at my dad. He was loading up a television with a friend of his. I look over at him and we make eye contact for a brief second. And the look on his face was a look that truly, I think, changed the trajectory of my life. It was the look of, I feel defeated. I feel at my lowest point. I feel like I let my family down. And in my mind, I was, I wasn't even a teenager yet. And in my mind, I thought, I never want to have that look. And it's not about failing. It's about feeling that failure and not being able to overcome it.
Yeah.
And sadly, after that, my dad's life took a really bad turn, but he never overcame it. And I knew that that was just not where I wanted my life to head. And
Oh,
that changed the rest of my life.
for sure. Tori, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I cannot imagine being that age and seeing your dad, who typically for little girls at that age, their dad's their hero and we look up to them for so much, to see that disappointment on his face, because I'm sure he was feeling not only disappointed in himself about what was happening, but for you, right? His daughter. And as an adult, you probably see that differently now than you did then. Yeah.
My dad was my number one, my hero. Completely agree. Just everything that I thought strength was my dad. And so seeing that moment of just complete heartache was so difficult, but I will have that in my memory. It's a core memory for me, whether good or bad, it's a core memory for me. And
Wow.
it's pushed me my entire life.
Wow. And so that moment, seeing that was the pivotal moment you were talking about. And knowing that you said you never wanted that to be you, has that been your driver to be as successful as you are? Because you're insanely successful. You said part of it was what happened growing up, right? I mean, which we all know there's whatever our experiences were do shape us. And like you said, also genetics comes into play. So if that's an experience that has become a driver for you genetically, I mean, where did you get this beautiful, brilliant mind of yours that you have?
Oh my gosh. My dad's parents, my grandparents, and my dad as well. My dad had a very certain skill set, very creative person. You know how you think of that saying, a guy's guy. So
Yeah.
the Mr. Fix It All can do anything and everything.
Right.
That was him. So if he did something, he wanted to do it right. He wanted to make sure it was not necessarily perfect, but to his standard. And his parents, my grandparents, they were entrepreneurs, and my great grandmother, also an entrepreneur. I had some really great role models in that way. And I grew up, my grandparents owned a charter bus company. I grew up in that world. And the charter bus company started off as a tour company. And I know you've seen it, Nancy. You've seen the little tours where the 60, 70-year-olds get off a bus, they, go take pictures of something, they get back on.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
that's what I started doing that at a young age. I think my first full multi-day tour was like at age 8.
Wow, that is a young age. Okay.
So I was taught from a very young age how to speak to people, you know, 5 to sometimes 10 times my age. So it was a unique upbringing. I've been to nearly every state. So it was a really amazing upbringing. But my grandmother was just a sharp, classy lady. And my grandfather was a minister for a period of time. And I definitely received my love of Jesus from them. Having a Christ-centered family was really important growing up. And I can talk a little bit about that too, because I think that that's a really big part of my life and who I am. But I got some stories about that. So, long story short,
Go
my
ahead.
my grandmother was a tenacious person, and definitely gave me the uh, the bird's eye view of what I could accomplish as I aged, and gave me a lot of the skill sets and helped me fine tune those skill sets at a very early age. She was pretty strict. She was really strict actually, but I learned so much from her, especially the ability to connect with people. She was fantastic at that.
Gosh, what wonderful support you had. I mean, a lot of people don't have that with their grandparents or they don't even know them. And to have such strong grandparents in your life to influence you in this way, just being entrepreneurial, jumping in at 8 on tour buses, and then the faith factor of your grandfather, that's amazing.
Grandfather. So my grandfather was more of the financial side of it. And one day he said, Tori, come here. Nancy, I was 11 years old. He said, Tori, come over here. I need some help. And he had just these massive stacks of paper. And he said, I need you to help me calculate payroll. I just looked at him. I'm 11. And I said, we haven't gone over that in school. He says, well, you're going over it now. So I started helping out with like payroll and HR related tasks. Like that was my first day, age 11.
That's amazing. And these are the kind of things that, have served you so well in your life that I think if we were all taught those kind of things in school or from our parents or grandparents, we'd be so much better equipped. But did that feel natural to you, speaking on a bus or going through payroll, or did it feel terrifying? Because all of these, you're being a leader, but it's very young. So how did it feel, stepping into those roles at the time?
I remember one time, Nancy, my grandfather entered into this business deal. Not a great business deal. And he said, something's just not right. I feel like something's not right. Well, come to find out, he looped me into what was going on. And I think at this time I was maybe 15 or 16. So he loops me into what's going on with this deal. And he says, here, and he hands me a stack of receipts and expense reports. And there's probably, I don't know, there's hundreds of expenses in these reports, if not thousands. And it's about 6 months worth of data. And he says, I think that this person is stealing money, committing some money laundering. And I went through all of it and discovered a ton of laundering. It was, I don't want to say it was a bonding experience for my grandfather and I, but he definitely, I think, saw a little bit in me that I was investigative enough to say, yeah, these don't line up. This receipt doesn't look real. Cross-check that to, other documents or other expense reports. I mean, it was just there were a lot of really unique situations that shaped that entrepreneurial mind. And definitely the environment I grew up in was the number one player.
And to be able to and you said your grandmother was tenacious. There's tenacity in that too, to stick with that piles and piles of, documents and figure it out. That's really cool. Knowing that about you, then at 24, you stepped into a struggling company, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're super young, you're stepping into a struggling company. And, what scared you the most to do what you did? Because at this time, are your grandparents still living? Like, where are you drawing I know your faith is super strong, but do you have a support network around you at this time to say, or you got this, or do this, or, where are you being brave when there's a lot of fear around something like this? Was there ever a moment you thought, I don't know if I could do this?
Yes. Short answer, yes.
Okay.
Yes to all that. So we'll go back to my dad. So my dad, post foreclosure, went into a really bad depression. He could not hold a job, started drinking, and, one beer after work turned into a half gallon of vodka a night. It was just a horrible addiction. And my dad passed away when I was 20. So after my dad passed, my grandparents passed not too long afterwards. Losing an only child is devastating. So once he passed, my grandfather, they still had the bus company. My grandfather called and he said, hey, I really need help. I can't do this anymore. When you come home for Christmas, like I want to have a conversation with you. And I'll never forget that conversation at Christmas time. We were at this little Mexican restaurant and my grandfather just started crying and he looked at me and he said, I can't do this alone. And he's in his mid 70s. And I said, okay, well, you tell me what you need to do, what you need me to do. And he said, I need you to finish up your next semester and I need you to move back home. And hearing that was a little bit heartbreaking for me because getting my degree was very important. And I went back to school, a couple weeks later after break and spoke with my advisor and some admin staff at my university, told them what was going on. They were very supportive. I was able to finish up some of my core classes online so I could finish my degree. So I did finish that. And all while coming back and helping my grandparents with their bus business. So what I didn't know was the business was really struggling. And there were some clues to let me know that, right? My grandfather would tell the office staff, like, please don't cash your paycheck today. Like, please wait a few days. And so I knew things were really rough, but I did not know how rough. I was not privy to the financial information. I was more on the sales and operations side. So I didn't, and I trusted my grandfather to make good choices. I think he was just in too far, just too far over his head. And both my grandparents ended up passing away within 11 months of each other. So it was very quick. And by age 24, it's just me. My grandparents have passed away. My dad passed away. And I inherit this bus company that's on the brink of bankruptcy. And I remember I was talking to our CPA and I said, her name was Wanda. And I said, Wanda, I don't know what to do. And I literally just broke out into tears and I said, I don't know what to do. Like, this is my family's name is on the side of this bus. Like, it means a lot to me. And she said, I'm going to give you a contact for an attorney that I think can help you. And when someone says attorney equals help, to me, I'm thinking it equals money.
Yeah, I already thought that. I'm like, where did she get the money? Okay.
And I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to call this guy. He's going to want all this money. And so his name was Wesley Pruitt. Wesley is still my attorney today. And I called Wes and I'm like, Wes, this is what's going on. Wanda gave me your information. And he said, all right, well, Tori, you have a couple choices here. He goes, number one, you can file bankruptcy. It's like, you can file it. He's like, you could try to restructure or you can just file it, let it go and move on. You're 24. You can recover from this. I'm like, yeah, I'm 24. I'm just starting my life. I don't want to start with a bankruptcy.
Right.
And then he says, well, number two, you could try to sell off all of the assets of the business and maybe you'll have enough to pay it off. And if you can't pay all of the debt off, maybe you can then restructure some of that debt that isn't paying off and just make payments on it. So that's option number two. And that didn't seem like a very good option either.
Right.
So then we use option three, which was if you're going to have to go with option number one or two, three is the starting point, which is try to make it work. What can you do to try to make it work? And I looked at him and I said, you realize I'm 24. I have no finance background. I mean, I have a lot of spunk and grit, and that's pretty much what I've got. And he said, and that's enough. I think you'll do fine. And I left his office and I went home and thought about it. What am I going to do? When I sold Clark Travel at age 28, I had 100 employees. And I thought at age 24, what am I going to do for the 70-ish employees that I had at the time? Like, what am I going to do? How can I look at them and say, I'm sorry? Can they get a job elsewhere? Yes, but they want to work here. So what can I do to make sure they have a paycheck for their family? So I went in and made what I would say are common sense adjustments. You're in this, person A is in this job. You need to be in this job because it's better suited for your skill set. Person B over here, what are you doing? You got to go. So I made all of these little changes and then I started seeing a difference almost immediately. People were happier with a new position. They were happier that certain people were not in their environment anymore. And then I looked at the debt and I knew right away the revenue coming in was just not going to clear that amount of debt. So one of our biggest debt holders, one of our biggest lien holders was our bus manufacturer. Just for sake of a fun fact, one charter bus at the time was about $525 to $550,000 per bus.
Oh, I had no idea.
And we had 35 of them. So that is where I saw the utilization of these 35 buses was just very low. Like, if we're only running this bus once or twice a week, it's not paying for itself. And that doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, but it does take someone to see it and do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm dying to know what you did. I mean, you have to get creative, I guess, because you're thinking, okay, what else?
This is where the courageous conversation comes in. The most courageous conversation of my life was right now, what I'm about to tell you. I called 2 different bus companies, and one of them ended up being the one that we made the deal with. They held the debt of the majority of the current fleet that we had. And I said, look, I've got 35 buses. I'm going to trade in 15 of them, but I only want to buy 5. So imagine going to a car dealership and saying, hey, Chevy car dealership, I want to buy a 1500 pickup truck. I have 2 pickup trucks I want to trade in for this one new one.
Right.
There are no dealerships that are going to say, yeah, Nancy, that sounds like a great idea. We'll take that deal all day. That's not a deal that they want to do, because now they have 2 liabilities they have to get rid of just for this one truck that they may or may not make a decent amount off of. I did not even know the finance jargon, right? Like, I had no idea. I just said, I want 5, I want to bring you 10, or I want 15 and I only want to get 5, like whatever our deal was going to be. I knew I needed to get the fleet down. There's always a way to negotiate, and you have to figure out what, in terms that I know now, right? They took my crazy deal. The CEO of the time of this company was Pat Ziska, and she, powerful woman, very smart woman, someone I still look up to. She's retired now, but I hope that she sees this and knows what she and my salesman Rob did for me changed my life. Because if they would not had accepted the deal, I was done. And they knew that. And they could have very easily said, you know what? We're just going to repo the buses. We can sell them and get our money. But they didn't do that. They gave me the opportunity. They believed in me. They continued financing buses. And I don't know how many millions of dollars of business we did in 4 years, but it was quite a bit. And I'll never forget when I sold Clark Travel, they sent me, or they didn't send it, they delivered it to me, a replica of one of my buses that was hand molded for me as a gift and a thank you for everything that we went through together, for the support that we both showed each other. And I think that business is really about that balance of giving and receiving, and giving more, and you will always in the back end receive so much more. Maybe not immediately up front, but you will. If you do the right thing will happen to you tenfold. And that's what I've definitely experienced in my life. It's been an amazing journey for me. And God placed all of these people in my life on my path for a reason. And in that moment in my life, I was probably at my lowest Jesus meter, meaning that I was really upset with where, things that had happened in my life. I lost my dad, and it really made me think twice about believing in Jesus, and then losing my grandparents. It took a huge toll on me. I didn't go to church for a long time, and I was really discouraged, and I found my way back into church and back into the Bible, and surrounding myself with like-minded people. And even just from that, my life has, even it gotten even more fantastic. So there's so many factors that played into the ups and downs of my life. But I know that if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for the people that God put in my life, I would have just really been a disaster. I mean, life would not have played out like this.
No, you're right. It's so funny because as you were talking, I was thinking the same thing that, and your life has embodied what I believe faith is, it's, stepping out and trusting God when you can't see what's next. And to me, we're co-creators in this with God. I mean, we have to believe he will, but we have to do our own part too, right? You could have just sat there on the couch crying, saying, God, help me, and doing nothing. But you stepped out and faith, and even if your faith is wavering or struggling, or you think, oh my gosh, have you left me? You still know somewhere inside you, he's there, and he will place those people in your life like he did. And you took that, you used your skills, you used what you knew, and you're like, okay, let's do this. And boy, did he bring you your ground angels, and you used your grit and resilience. And to me, those are huge. You don't have to know, like you said, the finance jargon or whatever it is, or let's say it's the stock market or whatever it is you're doing. You don't have to be an expert.
No.
You don't. But if you have that faith and that grit and that resilience, God will come right alongside of you. And it's a beautiful partnership with him leading, it's amazing.
I agree. I can think back to every point in my life, and I know you can too, Nancy, of the good and the bad, and you can see the anointed path. You can see it. And at the time, you can't see it sometimes.
Right.
It's really difficult. Like I remember after my dad passed away, I was so angry and my heart hurt. There was anger. I had a little bit of resentment, and I was like that for years, just an unhealthy amount. I was like that for years. And finally, I I remember speaking to someone. She said, why, for the obvious reason, you're upset that your dad passed away, and that is understandable. But have you thought that the journey that God had for your dad, that he's completed that journey? And I said, no, I haven't thought that because I'm too busy being absorbed in my own feelings and being upset myself. So no, I haven't thought that
Well,
selfishly.
human.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she said, we're all walking a different path and a different journey. And she said, it sounds like your dad fulfilled his journey maybe a lot sooner than what you expected the fulfillment to be. And that really made me think. And I reflected and I just thought, wow, maybe this person is right. And I tried to then look at the glass as more full than empty and turn my faith back around. But I will never forget her saying that to me because part of me wanted to say, how do you know? How
Yeah.
do you know this? You know, but you can't. You have to have faith in knowing that everything that happens is intentional, both good and bad. And I'm not saying that my dad passing away was an intentional thing, right? But definitely a path that I feel like really influenced me to eventually become closer to God and eventually be able to lead my own family in the way that I feel led to lead.
Yes, I love that. And you're right. I think that if we all look back at these struggles in our life and the hardest moments, right? While they were painful, and if it's grief, we wish they were still here with us. If it's the loss of a marriage, a job, a family member, whatever it is we're grieving, when we look back, we realize how much closer that brought us into relationship with him,
Mhm.
right? And how grateful we are for that. And your story is incredible. And now you're serving on boards, you're leading teams, you've built a new business in Spa Lux. I would love for everybody to hear a little bit about your new venture at Spa Lux. For those of y'all listening, she has built this amazing spa, Lux. It's in Georgetown, and she has a new one that's just opened in Austin, Texas. I have had the honor of seeing it. And I love the heart that she puts into it. And I would love for you to tell everybody a little bit about that, because you lead and grow with a human side, and you really care about the people working with you and the culture that you develop. And I think all of that you've been through has led you to lead in this way. So tell everybody a little bit about that, because I think it's important to you, the kind of legacy that you're creating in this newest venture.
Well, I remember with Clark Travel just being so stressed all the time. And of course, not everyone is fighting bankruptcy, right? Um,
Right.
and I have to say, that chapter closed beautifully for me. I sold Clark Travel to a cold caller who was a competitor from Dallas, and it was a quite honestly just a dream situation for me. Something I never thought would happen in my life. So that part of my journey ended very well. And then I was just kind of at a standstill of, what do I do next? And I loved going to the spa. I would lay on a massage table or an aesthetics table. And you know the feeling, Nancy, where someone is just, you know, putting a mask on you, like a mud mask or an enzyme peel, just the feeling of the mask brush on your skin, or the feeling of their hand like on your tense shoulders, massaging your shoulders. That is what I wanted to do every day. I didn't physically want to perform those services, but I wanted to bring that to people to experience every day. And you may think, oh my gosh, well, there's hundreds of spas out there. Of course there are, but in Austin and Georgetown, there are great spas in the area. But I did not necessarily want a spa. I wanted a hospitality company because I knew hospitality. So Spa Lux is a hospitality company disguised as a spa. And I say that because that's our differentiator. Is you're going to come to Spa Lux, you're going to receive a robe and sandals and have access to our amenities and have that resort-like feel. The hospitality is second to none. We only hire phenomenal human beings. So, I mean, you're going to have a fantastic spa service, but the team member is really the differentiator. So all of the touch points that we incorporate and the little things that we do for each guest, that is what absolutely sets us apart.
Yeah. And I can vouch for that for sure.
And it's been a great venture. Everyone says, oh, well, how'd you go from buses to spa? And I'm like, they're both hospitality.
Mm.
They're both hospitality. It's really about how you treat people. So
I happen to love the massage and mask more than the best personally, as far as hospitality goes. But you're right. You're right. It's how you serve people, right? And make them feel 100%.
that saying of, you can do something great for someone, you can give them something, but really how you make them feel is the most powerful aspect of that. So, we see, especially women carry so much. So at the end of the day, if a woman walks through our doors, and sometimes we'll have someone walk in and you can tell right off the bat, they're not having a good day. Either they've been dealing with the kids all day, someone's sick, they've been running around, they're worn out. Or it could be they're grieving. Maybe they lost someone close or something that is just really heavy on their mind. And our emotions can come out verbally, and you can immediately see this particular guest, they really need some extra love. So we have this saying at Spotlucks, and when we have a guest who's going through a difficult time, or maybe is giving our team a little bit of a hard time because they're just not in a good place right now, we always say, thank God they found their way to Spotlucks, because by the time they leave, they will be in so much more of a better place than when they arrived.
All of your experiences have made you this amazingly intuitive, compassionate, faithful woman who's able to bring all of that into your business. Because yes, like you said, there are lots of spas, right? And I mean, they're not just in Austin, but throughout the country in every city. But a lot of times you're a number, right? The staff doesn't know you. They may walk you into the locker room and go, here are what size are your feet? Here are your shoes. Here's your robe. There's a bathroom. Bye-bye. And it's sort of like a cattle call, right? Next, next, next. But I love what you said because I believe it. People may not always remember what you said or necessarily the experience, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And doing that, bringing in all that you're bringing in to your business is, I mean, such a gift to the women who walk in the door. And it is your differentiator. I mean, even though your treatments are spectacular and I believe they're top notch better. They are because you care not only about the equipment you're buying, but the space. What does that feel like when somebody walks in? What does that look like? How are they greeted? What can we do for them? I mean, there's so many details that go in with so much care into what you've created. But I love that you are able to intuit and your staff are selected because they can with how the woman's feeling when they're walking in.
I really appreciate you saying that. And you're right. There's so much that goes on, but behind the door of a spa, in our back of house, there's so many moving pieces, like a restaurant. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the feeling you have when you leave. And for multiple reasons. Not only do we want you to feel just like a better human being overall, but that's what brings you back.
Yeah.
So if my team provides you a facial and it's very similar to a facial that you had at Spa XYZ, what's going to differentiate that experience to bring you back? And that's where we really spend the majority of our energy, is making sure that that feeling comes out. The Lux experience is second to none in how it makes you feel. And that's very intentional. And we're always fine tuning it. And if you are not fine tuning, you're not growing. So,
All right. Yeah. Amen. Yeah, you're not.
yeah.
Well, okay. For the woman who is listening right now and standing at the edge of a brave decision, what would you want her to know? What would the wonderful Tori Clark, resilient, grit, spunky woman want her to know right now?
If you don't do it now, someone else will. And 5 years from now, you'll regret that you didn't.
That's good.
And that's really, I think about it all the time. What if I would have filed bankruptcy? What if I would have sold off all the assets? What if I would have not picked up the phone and called Wesley? There's so many what ifs. And I just think, you know what? I did it and I don't regret it. And you know what? Let's say you try it and it doesn't work out. I would rather try and fail than never have tried at all and constantly live my life with a what if I would have, what if I would have.
Amen. I love that. There's nothing I think worse than regret of
Mm-hmm.
not stepping out and trying it, right? And what a richer life you have. And I always have told my kids, look, I don't want to sit next to someone at a dinner party who hasn't, you know, lost or tried or and failed or gone through something tough and overcome, because that person who hasn't done that isn't interesting to me. But they haven't really lived a full life of loss and then seen what it's like when you overcome that, and there's a depth there that you have when you do take a risk and you do try. And I love that you certainly have that.
Well, I just know that at the end of the day, I know me, and I think I can speak for most people of the regret would eat me alive. We spoke earlier, you asked the question of what support did you have, like in going through everything with Lord
Right.
Trumbull. I had the support of a team that, 70, 80 people at the time that looked to me and said, we're going to stick around because we think you can do this. We believe you can do this. And truly, if that 70 or 80 people shrank down to just one person, that's really all a person needs is that one person to push Nancy, a few feet forward, to push her to believe in herself or take the risk or do the deal, whatever the quest is.
Yes,
Just takes one. It truly just takes one.
it does. And, that's why our words are so powerful. We never know what impact they have on somebody and how powerful they can be, right? To either lift them up and encourage them or the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
We have to be so intentional and careful and encouraging because we could be that one person without knowing we're the one person.
And you should always strive to be that one person. My friends tell me they feel like I'm famous for what I'm about to tell you. My friends are also very generous with their compliments. I always encourage my friends and my family to walk with a domino in their pocket because with dominoes, if you think about it, it just takes one domino to push the other domino and make a chain reaction of continuing to push multiple people, right? So if I encourage you, and that's my push to you to do something, and you go do something big and great, and then you do something for someone else and it keeps going, then that one domino just made an incredible impact.
It is so cool. I've never heard that. I love that. I need a domino in my pocket and to hand them out to
Now I need to bring you one next time we see each other in person.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be coming out to the Georgetown location soon. So,
Perfect.
but Tori, I cannot thank you enough for having you on the show today. And I'm so grateful that, through the Texas Business Hall of Fame, we were able to meet and you were just an amazing inspiration to so many. And I'm grateful to know you and so thankful to have you on the show today. So
Thanks, Nancy. I really appreciate the opportunity. And the Texas Business Hall of Fame, we have to mention them for a moment. What an incredible organization to be a part of. And it's just been phenomenal to be able to meet and connect with such incredible people like yourself. So again, thank you for having me on the show and being in the right place at the right time, right? That was a God thing.
I agree. It always is. Yes, let me second that about the Texas Business Hall of Fame and what an incredible group of people and what an honor and a privilege and a blessing it is to meet everybody and to know that people like you. But Tori, this was so great today and you're so great. And thank you for coming.
Thanks again, Nancy. I appreciate you.
Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, if you haven't been out to Spa Lux, you've got to come because it's incredible. And I'm so grateful for all of y'all that have tuned in today. And I'll see you next time on the She Laughs podcast. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to She Laughs. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend who might need a little courage or a reminder that she's not alone? Every share helps more women find their inner cool girl and kick fear to the curb. You can find links to our guests, watch full episodes on YouTube, and connect with me on social at She Laughs Podcast Official, all in the show notes. And remember, the dream inside of you means something. Take the first step. Be brave. God's got your back. And girl, you've got this.